What up, Leaguers? Welcome to the Spectacular Spoiler League. I'm the Pandan Superman, the mayor of Hype City, HazyRome, and as always, I'm joined by the God of Night, the Prime Minister of Post-Production, DeepBoyce. And today we are here to rank some Spider-Man movies, top to bottom. Bottom being the worst Spider-Man movie of all time, the top being the best Spider-Man movie of all time. All the live-action movies ranked right here. Which one's the best? Who will be at the top? DeepBoyce, tell them what it is.
Yeah, I got my boxing gloves ready. Because it might get hot and heavy. I don't know if it'll be in the middle of the countdown or the top of the countdown, but we're ranking them, right? All live action. Talk about Spider-Man 1, 2, 3, Amazing Spider-Man 1, 2, and the most recent Spider-Man Homecoming starring Tom Holland. So,
yes. Notably, we are not counting Captain America Civil War. We are only counting movies in which Spider-Man has been the main starring character.
Yes.
The titular character, if you will.
Yes.
So, Captain America Civil War, you're not in this.
And we're changing it up a bit because this is a top 6. It's not a top 5 or a top 10.
Yes.
Top 6.
Exactly. Top 6, baby. DeepBoyce, tell them who's starting off with number 6. Who's at the very bottom? Who's the worst de la worst?
Number 6, the worst of the worst of the worst of the Spider-Man live-action films is Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Slapbox this way right to the bottom, my man.
Yeah,
Terrible.
I mean, this movie's the reason why Sony rebooted, why Andrew Garfield got the boot. Das Boot.
Das Boot. I mean, and it was a hard separation because they didn't really necessarily want to boot him.
Yeah, then whose decision was it?
It's
ours?
complicated, man.
Was it the universe? Was it Stan Lee's?
I mean, Amazing Spider-Man 2, like, it underperformed really badly in terms of box office performance, man. Like, say what you want about the number 5 pick. We're going to get to that in a second.
Yes.
But that movie at least made a ton of money still.
It did.
Amazing Spider-Man 2 is the worst in terms of how much money it made and the profits of the company. That was one. 2, I mean, they just try to do too much world building. Sony had some email leaks that kind of exposed their plans for the Spidey universe they were trying to start. They were trying to do a Sinister Six movie.
Yeah.
There was rumors they were trying to do an Aunt May solo movie, and Aunt May solo movie.
Sally Fields.
Are you kidding me?
Sally Fields puts butts in seats.
No. So I just think it was a cascading, situation for Sony and the Spider-Man franchise. And then they decided to strike the deal with Marvel, and that was all she wrote. Yeah. I assume Marvel wanted to start over. And, Amazing Spider-Man 2 was a big part of that. It was a critical failure relative to Spider-Man and relative to the projections.
But,
I mean, dubstep Electro, that's all that needs to be said.
But
I don't know, every time you saw Electro, it was like, wah, 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 wah. I'm like, why is there dubstep playing right now? I didn't understand that.
In retrospect, it kind of led to the monumental Sony-Marvel deal. So maybe that is a plus. In the pro column,
still don't make it a good movie, man.
It didn't make it a good movie. I mean, the villains were not good. No. Andrew Garfield was kind of flat. Action.
Oh damn! Hate on Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, it was everything was just kind of flat, and then the plot was, I don't know, it wasn't particularly interesting. So it was just there. It was very middle, just subpar, and even a bad movie can maybe stand out. There's something about it that you can maybe at least think about. But maybe Spider-Man 2 is just way too forgettable.
I mean, the costume was cool. I think the costume was dope.
I mean, none of the other costumes were bad though.
That's fair. That's fair.
Not that I disagree, but it was just
No, that's 100% fair. You're not wrong about that, man. I mean, I think villain-wise was definitely where it struggled. I mean, Electro...
Keep in mind, Electro was mad at Spider-Man because he forgot about him.
Yeah, that was part of it. And then, Green Goblin, Harry Osborn. He wasn't terrible as Harry Osborn, but just him turning into the Goblin character, the design was so ugly. It was terrible. He looked like a heroin addict. It wasn't a good look.
Yeah,
it wasn't great.
He has some sort of congenitive disorder or something like that.
Yeah. You just didn't care about it. And once again, too much. Oh, Rhino. Forgot about Rhino. Oh my gosh, Mech Rhino.
Someone as talented as Paul Giamatti, you put him in that bum ass role. This is what you do.
Why? Like, be honest, man. As a reader of comic books, you're thinking of the Rhino villain. The first person you're gonna think of to cast as the Rhino is Paul Giamatti.
Well, this is a different. This is Japanese Mechazord Rhino. This is a totally different type of Rhino that they went with this in this movie.
It was completely random, and you know, to be fair, Rhino's a hard character to modernize, but damn, I know we spent a lot of time talking about this, but that movie was a train wreck, bro. Number 5 is the next train wreck. We all know it's coming. If you're a fan of bad Spider-Man movies, if you know about bad Spider-Man movies, you know if Amazing Spider-Man 2 is the bottom, there's only one thing that could be second to worst, and that's Spider-Man 3. Lord.
Ooh. See, now the thing is, there are some Spider-Man 3 apologists out there, so they may not like this.
Whoa. Who? Name them so I can find the person.
I've seen them, and we know one of them.
Oh, boy. If I know that person, I'm coming for you. Okay? If I know you and you were Spider-Man 3, I am coming for you. As soon as I get out of all the spoilers. What was so bad about Spider-Man 3, man? Tell us.
They crammed too much in there. They couldn't hold off for Spider-Man 4 so they could throw whack-ass Venom in Spider-Man 4. Right? Yes. They had the
whack-ass Venom. Hold up, man. You just snuck that in there, man. Their Venom was whack, but Venom overall, man. I know you're a Venom hater, but show some respect, man.
All right, fine.
Tom Hardy's going to earn your respect, man.
He will.
Hopefully. I hope he does. I hope he does.
They had emo Peter Parker over there pointing fingers and dancing and hip thrusting and all that.
I'm telling you, man, them pelvic thrusts, man. I was impregnated just by sitting in a movie theater watching that, man. That man's he's got pelvic thrusts for days. Too bad I don't want to see that in a Spider-Man movie.
They had your boy Topher Grace.
Terrible.
Wiggity diggity.
That was terrible as Eddie Brock. He was, once again, you think about Eddie Brock, right? You don't think about casting the skinny kid from That 70s Show?
Yeah, you don't think
Topher Grace?
He doesn't. You're not reminiscent of Eddie Brock when you watch That 70s Show? Doesn't bring any feelings of big brolic Spider-Man hater? No, not at all.
Topher Grace. I mean, I couldn't buy this dude as Eddie Brock, man. He's just like, Peter Parker, I hate him. God, please let me. This is like, you hate Peter Parker because he embarrassed you. Like, even the way they told Brock's story was just, It was like lackluster. Shoehorned in. They just wanted to add a villain Venom in, just like you said. Not good. Also, Harry Osborn as, I didn't even know, this was the part that got me the most. I didn't even know he was supposed to be playing the new version of Green Goblin, because he didn't look like a goblin other than having the glider and the pumpkin bombs. But then I'm watching the credits, they're like, James Franco as Harry Osborn / New Goblin. They called him New Goblin. They were like, yo, we don't want to call him Green. We don't want to call him Hob. We just gonna call him New Goblin. We don't even want to give him a name.
He's
my man looks nothing like a goblin.
He's a new goblin for a new age. He's got the new glasses and the new suit. You know what I'm saying? And the frosted tips.
Bro, he didn't even have no suit, bro. He was rocking the same attire that you rock when you going on a ski trip, fam. He looked like he was going snowboarding, man. The only difference was he was flying instead of going down a mountain. Terrible. Terrible. I can't say it enough.
And I think they also had Gwen Stacy. That was Bryce Dallas Howard. She played Gwen Stacy. Now, there was a dope scene where the building was falling and Peter Parker went to save her or whatever. That was cool.
Hot.
That was a cool scene.
That was hot. That was a cool scene.
And the ending sucked. The ending sucked.
Yes, agreed. But next up, number 4. Who's in at number 4, my man?
Number 4 is Amazing Spider-Man 1, the first foray into Peter Parker / Andrew Garfield. We got Gwen Stacy. it was a decent film. It was a good way to start that new franchise. It felt different enough, and they picked again. They had Gwen Stacy. First time they've done that in the movies. They had the Lizard, which they had the character of Kurt Connors before in the Sam Raimi films, but they never really made him into the Lizard. And in this one, he was the villain, and it wasn't that bad. It was entertaining. I mean, it was well put together from beginning to end, and it's really hard. At least me personally, it's really hard for me to fault a movie when it's the first one in a franchise. I think usually, I'm a little bit lenient. It has to kind of establish itself and establish the major players and pieces in the franchise, and usually you get it right the second time through, like a Spider-Man 2 or a Dark Knight. But wasn't as strong as some of the other entries that we'll see later on in this list. And again, it's just that Andrew Garfield era just doesn't really doesn't really stand out as much as Tobey MacGuire and Tom Holland do as Peter Parker, Spider-Man.
I couldn't have said it better. One pet peeve I had about it, and if it depends on which version of comic book history you're looking at or which version of comic book history you want to focus on. There's the iconic line with Uncle Ben saying, "With great power, there must also come great responsibility." That's a big thing for Uncle Ben. That line is technically misquoted a lot. Spider-Man even pokes fun of it in the comics. It's often shorted to "with great power comes great responsibility," but it's actually "there must also come great responsibility." But anyway, in the comics, technically speaking, when that line first appears in the comic books, and I believe it was Amazing Fantasy number 15. That's not actually spoken by a character, but then it was later attributed to Uncle Ben. So I could see people saying, well, technically Uncle Ben didn't really say it at first. But when you look at the greater, comic book history, it's always attributed to Uncle Ben. And he never said it in the movie. I understand you don't want to, tread on the same things that, Spider-Man 1 with Tobey MacGuire did. But I'm like, this is something that's, fundamental to the Spider-Man character. He was like, Peter, always remember responsibility. I'm like, come on, man. Come on, man. Just say the damn line so that we can move on. And that was kind of part of the problem with Amazing Spider-Man is we didn't really need a Spider-Man reboot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was just a choice by, the Sony group, the think tank, because, honestly, Sam Raimi, who had directed the original trilogy of Spider-Man films, they had a differing of opinions. He wanted to do Vulture as the fourth villain. They did not. And they parted ways. And that resulted in the reboot. And it wasn't better than our next entry. Our next entry is the original, the first Spider-Man movie, entitled Spider-Man.
Yep.
Why it's at number 3? Well, because at the end of the day, Spider-Man was responsible for the launch. Spider-Man and X-Men, the first X-Men movie, were responsible for the launch and the kind of appearance of comic book movies and them being such a huge money-making business for Hollywood today. I mean, the comic book movies wouldn't be where they are today without Spider-Man and X-Men. Definitely, I would say Spider-Man to a greater extent just because of the popularity that it had. But, I mean, it was just a great movie. It had Peter in high school. It portrayed Peter as a nerd. Mary Jane, who was, portrayed by Kirsten Dunst. DeepBoyce is a huge fan of her portrayal as Mary Jane. Don't snore, man. That's not nice. Kirsten Dunst may be listening, man. It's not nice.
Not my Mary Jane.
And then Green Goblin, man. I mean,
yeah, Green Goblin.
Willem Dafoe as freaking Norman Osborn was fantastic.
He stole the show, honestly.
He stole the show.
I think he was the best part of that movie, and that final fight scene. I remember really getting emotional watching that. Like, he beat the crap out of Spider-Man at the end. I mean, he OD'd on him.
Yeah, definitely.
Extremely. I mean,
it did start one trend with superhero movies that I have hated, and I always bring it up every time we talk about it, is killing off your villains, bro.
Ah, yes.
The loss of Norman Osborn was felt throughout the whole trilogy. Because, I mean, let's be honest, Willem Dafoe continued to appear as, Ghost Norman Osborn, you know, whatever you want to call it. I guess the crazy,
No, he turned into
fractured mind.
He turned into Mirror Master.
Avenge me! Avenge me! He's like, Harry! Avenge me! This is, I mean, him talking to Harry Osborn was hilarious, but also great. I mean, Willem Dafoe was missed, man. He was missed in the trilogy by them killing him. But, I mean, Spider-Man was it put Spider-Man on the map. I mean, that pose of Spider-Man chilling behind the American flag, I'm pretty sure that was from Spider-Man 1, if I'm not mistaken. That was, that's iconic.
They also did it in Spider-Man 3.
They did.
But it wasn't as iconic, though.
Yeah, you know what? Part of the iconicness of that was just iconicness. I don't know if that's a word. Is that it came around September 11th, and you know it was something that was needed.
That's true.
That's true. Give hope to the masses.
I remember they took out a scene from the first Spider-Man that involved the Twin Towers, and they took it out because of the attacks.
Yes. 9/11, everybody, never forget. We're from New York, so we got that holds a special place in our heart. But anyway, next up. Number 2, we getting, see now this is where the list, this is where we start boxing right here. This is where we start fighting, man. This is where the things could get a little controversial for some people, man. Number 2.
Oh boy.
Number 2, all right? We're down to 2 movies. All right? It could either be Spider-Man Homecoming or Spider-Man 2. And the answer for us is unequivocally Spider-Man 2, everybody. Woo. Dun, dun, dun.
Listen, ladies and gentlemen. Spider-Man 2, one of my favorite Spider-Man movies of all time. Or one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. Iconic movie, fantastic. But sometimes classics, they get outdone. Sometimes there's a movie that comes along and is better. That happens sometimes. Not often, but sometimes it does. And I think we're past the point where Spider-Man 2 is up on that pedestal. We're still holding it in reverence. It's still a great movie. It's still fantastic. I mean,
it still set the trend and the standard.
Yes,
for superhero movies to come.
In my mind, it was The Dark Knight set the standard for dark, gritty superhero films. The Spider-Man 2 set the standard for, I guess, like campy, like traditional superhero films. Like it followed the lineage of Christopher Reeve's Superman from way back in the day. It was the good guy beating the bad guys. He's the hero, wholesome, all-American. That's kind of what Spider-Man 2 was moving along, that same lane. But, we'll get more into why Spider-Man Homecoming is our number 1 choice, obviously, because that's the only one that's left. Yeah, it's hard to really say anything bad about Spider-Man 2, but it certainly wasn't a perfect movie. I mean, like we said before when we talked about Peter Parker's or Spider-Man portrayals, Tobey MacGuire's in-suit Spider-Man portrayal, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't quintessentially Spider-Man-ish, if that makes any sense. Yeah. I mean, oftentimes when he's in the suit, something bad's about to happen. He just says, "Oh my god," and then he gets smacked or something like that. He just says, "Oh boy," like he didn't really talk much. He didn't really, annoy his villains like Spider-Man pretty much always does, in the comics. And Spider-Man 2 wasn't as much of a direct, I guess, portrayal of the Spider-Man comics as, let's say, Spider-Man Homecoming, which again we'll get into. But I that was fine. I mean, I appreciate the adaptation that Sam Raimi went with. And if you ever see any other Sam Raimi films, Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 are very much in line with the types of movies he likes to make. I mean, it's a lot like the Evil Dead movies in the way that he cuts and edits and shoots the films. It's almost like a live action Looney Tunes movie or something like that. The way he kind of angles the shots and zooms in and is like overly dramatic in a cheesy way, but he did it just at the right amount of cheesiness and campiness that it was endearing and it wasn't annoying. Go ahead, AZ.
One thing I liked about Spider-Man 2, and let's be honest about it, let's rank it at number 2. That's by no means a shot at Spider-Man 2. It's still a great place to be within the pantheon of Spider-Man films. But one thing I also loved about Spider-Man 2 was the kind of like the portrayal of Peter Parker as, emotionally distraught with all the things going on in his life at once. Like Peter Parker generally has a very hard time managing his personal life, or balancing Spider-Man and his personal life. And it really showed between his relationship with Mary Jane, with Harry Osborn, with him not wanting to be Spider-Man, having, just experienced just shot after shot to his personal life. I did like that. And I did like him ultimately accepting that, maybe the world needs Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And it gave him hope to see, New Yorkers rally around him on the subway train. And it gave us hope to see him step into the role. That being said, let's get into our number one choice. There's only one movie left, everybody. DeepBoyce, tell him what it is.
Our number one Spider-Man movie of all time. Spider-Man Homecoming. Yes. And that might...
So why is it number one, man? Because I feel like more than us justifying it being number one, we have to defend it against Spider-Man 2. I feel like that's the biggest thing. Because it's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people.
It is. And again, this is by hair. It's not like it resoundingly defeats Spider-Man 2. They're very neck and neck, and again, Spider-Man 2 is still fantastic. But Spider-Man Homecoming, in my opinion, is the most comic book accurate adaptation of Spider-Man I've ever seen in a movie. Or in anything, really.
Now I immediately hear people shouting about spoilers for Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yes.
I'm going to say that right now. Spoilers. Huge spoiler for Spider-Man Homecoming.
Spoilers.
The character of Zendaya, Michelle Jones, a.k.a. MJ, as they call her. A lot of people are like, she's not Mary Jane. That's the biggest thing I heard. What do you... That's what people are saying. They sound exactly like that when they say it, too.
It's just
so what is your counter argument to that?
My counter argument is that I just was not fond of her portrayal of Mary Jane Watson in most of the movies. I mean, she was fine in Spider-Man 1, but in Spider-Man 2, let's remember that she wasn't even with Peter Parker for the majority of the movie. She was with J. Jonah Jameson's son, the astronaut or whatever. And then finally, she broke up and then got with Peter Parker at the end. But she just did not do it for me. And I really enjoy the MJ character a lot more in Spider-Man Homecoming than I did in Spider-Man 1 through 3, Sam Raimi's films.
She was likable.
She was much more likable. She was I don't know, she seemed like a real person to me. And MJ and those other movies just did not. She was just a damsel. That's just pretty much what she was, and that's no longer interesting. Like, we're too far ahead in the game for you to just put a woman in a movie and she's just there as a plot device. Like, there's got to be more. There's got to be more going on there. And like I said, this movie was the most comic book accurate portrayal of Spider-Man, the Spider-Man property that I've ever seen. Peter Parker was extremely on point. I mean, everything about him, the character growth. I thought the plot was extremely interesting, and just this is a movie you can watch over and over and over, and it's a pleasant experience to watch this movie. I was happy the entire time I was in the movie theater. Like, I haven't felt this way in a while watching movies, let alone superhero movies. I mean, I was just really happy to see all the hard work that they put into this and what it ultimately turned out to be. And like I alluded earlier, I said that sometimes classics get outdone. Sometimes they get dethroned. And one of the huge things about this movie is that it's part of the MCU. I mean, Spider-Man 2, as much as I loved it, it stands all alone in its own vacuum, and Spider-Man did not interact with Tony Stark. He didn't watch a Captain America PSA. Like, none of those other things existed because they couldn't, because they just weren't around. And in Spider-Man Homecoming, the movie experience is made that much better because we know they're connected with all these other movies. He was in Civil War. He's going to be in this. He's going to be in that. And then, again, to watch not just this movie, but a lot of these other Marvel movies years down the road, it's going to be such an awesome experience after having seen everything kind of play out the way that it did and everything connect. And I guess real quick, something I forgot to mention with Spider-Man 2 is Dr. Octopus, Alfred Molina was fantastic in Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, definitely.
But Michael Keaton was no slouch as the Vulture.
Agreed.
Like, he was one of the better parts of the movie as well. And
especially since the Vulture is not really one of the first villains you think about when you think about Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery, and he actually gave an identity to Adrian Toomes.
Oh, yeah,
and one thing, you know, just to interject, and I'll let you continue, that I liked about it, despite it not necessarily being comic book accurate, is the connection they made between Liz Allen and Adrian Toomes, with Toomes being her father. And you know, it's something that is unique to the movie, but it doesn't change, you know, it doesn't change the characters to the extent that you're like, oh my gosh, this is an egregious change to the comic book history. If anything, it made those characters both more prominent in their own right, to not only the narrative of Spider-Man Homecoming, but to the personal meaning to these characters in Spider-Man and Peter Parker's life. Yeah. And it drew Peter Parker and Spider-Man together even further in terms of those two not being as separate as he thinks they are, or maybe wants them to be. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, and to that point, I mean, this movie did something that, I mean, you know, Spider-Man 2 also did, but a lot of superhero movies failed to do, is to really drive home the consequences of your action. I mean, in this movie, everything that Peter Parker did, everything that Spider-Man did, just had a ripple effect. I mean, that twist, I mean, not only was it extremely well done, and you know, as a jaded moviegoer, I really enjoyed it because I was not expecting it. I was totally just disarmed. I didn't expect the villain to open the door when he would go pick up his date. Like, they just, the way they got me completely, and I really appreciate it.
It was a comic book level twist on the level of the epic twists that have like just kind of shaken comic book fandom and whatnot. Yes. Like, it was pretty. It wasn't even just an epic twist for, you know, comic book multimedia. It was an epic twist for a movie. I didn't expect that at all.
Yes, totally.
And I think the large part of the audience didn't expect that at all, which was pretty damn cool, man.
Yep.
I mean, one more thing I wanted to say about it, man. I mean, just the fact that I don't want to detract from Spider-Man 2. Again, like I feel like I have to keep saying that. But I also feel like sometimes when something is held in a legendary status, like Spider-Man 2 is nowadays, you sometimes put it on a pedestal where you don't want it to ever be taken off that pedestal. And I feel like if I'm looking at Spider-Man Homecoming, it in my opinion, it fairly dethrones it. Now there's other people that are like, oh, I've literally seen people complain about him being in high school and they're upset about the high school environment. I'm like, the quintessential portrayal of Spider-Man. Don't let the movies previously or the Spider-Man animated series fool you. Like, the quintessential Spider-Man is a high schooler. He got his powers when he was like 14, 15, and he spent a long time learning and trying to figure it out. Mm-hmm. That's one of the coolest things about Homecoming, is that they show a Spider-Man who's very much learning his powers. Now, some people are like, well, in Civil War, he seemed like he had a greater handle on it. I'm like, well, guess what? You know what? When a rookie in sports plays the sport that they're playing, they're not always performing like an all-star every single game of the year. They have good games, they have bad games. And just like with Peter Parker in Homecoming, he had good days and he had bad days. He had times where he showed potential to be a capable hero. Other times where his web swinging wasn't on point. You know what I mean? He was making silly mistakes. And it further portrayed the fact that he is a kid. He's a kid who's taken on this huge responsibility to be a hero. Yep. And they got that with Homecoming. They got that. And I love that about Homecoming.
Totally agree.
That being said, what are your rankings for the Spider-Man movie? Do you hate us now that we've ranked Spider-Man Homecoming above Spider-Man 2? Do you love us because we were willing to take a risk? I hope you love us. But anyway, if you liked anything you heard today, feel free to join up with the Spectacular Spoiler League to talk smack about Amazing Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3. Feel free to list your rankings in the comments below. We definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. And by all means, hit us with a like if you heard anything you liked today. And if you didn't hear what you liked today, hit us with a like anyway, just because you feel sorry for us and we need your love. Anyway, me and DeepBoyce, we are getting out of all the spoilers. We will catch you guys on the next one. We are swinging out of here. I was going to sing the Spider-Man theme song, but it like completely was. I almost said, no, Spider-Man. I was like, I don't think that's right. But anyway, I'm going to just not sing the Spider-Man. Spider-Man. That's what it is. See, I messed that up. Anyway, guys, we'll see you later.
Peace.